The user interface to add a new item only needs two text fields and a button. Now, the first time I built this app, I used a view controller to make the new UI, and then realized that while auto layout is a wonderful thing for simple UIs, it can kind of be overkill. So rather than force you to listen to me describe the minutiae of auto layout, which will just obscure the eventual goal of finishing the application, I decided to take another approach, and it will also allow us to explore something new as well. For this part, we aren't going to do anything in the storyboard. It's all going to be in the code, in English View Controller. The approach that I'm going to use is to show a pop-up, or in iOS terms, a UI alert controller. But before getting to that, there needs to be a way to show it. Now, I think the best way to do this would be to add a button in the navigation bar. And you can add a button to the right side of the navigation item by creating a new UIBarButtonItem and using it for the right bar button item property of the navigation item. So let's get that started. So I'm going to get my navigation item, and I'm going to get the right bar button item, and I'm going to set that to a new UI bar button item. Now this is going to take two parameters. The first is the icon that's going to be shown for the button, and this UI bar button system item enumeration has many that you can choose from. I'm going to select add, which is going to be a plus button. Now second, what we're going to get is we're going to have a handler, and this is just a standard event handler with two parameters, one for the sender, one for event args, that's going to be triggered when the button is pressed. Now I could write a separate method here and pass it in, but in this case I'm just going to use a lambda. Some people think this might be overkill for a lambda. I disagree. I think that since the code's pretty straightforward, it's not going to be a big deal. Granted, I probably would not want to stretch it much further than this. So let me get that cleaned up. So the first thing I'm going to do inside of the lambda is I'm going to create a new UI alert controller. So I'm going to call it alert controller. Now notice that UI alert controller uses a static factory method to create new instances instead of a constructor. And the first parameter is the title of the alert, and that's going to be shown at the top in bold text. And so I'll just say add translation. Now the message in many cases is probably going to be the content that the user actually cares about. However, in my case, I'm going to have two text fields in this alert, and they're going to have placeholders that indicate what type of content they need. So I'm just going to leave this blank, put an empty string in there. And then the last thing is the style of the alert controller. There are two possible styles, both contained in this enumeration here. Action sheet, which is something that will slide up from the bottom with buttons on it, and then there's also the alert, which is the pop-up, which is what I'm going to create here. Now what I want to do is add the text fields. So on UI alert controller, there is a add text field method. Now if all you want is a plain text field and you don't want to do any kind of configuration to it, this is just fine. However, in my case, what I want is I actually want to pass this a configuration handler, and it's going to take, and I'm going to use a lambda again, it's going to take one parameter, which is going to be the text field that's being created, and in here, I don't want to call that action, actually I want to call this text field dot placeholder, and I'm going to say I want this to be an English word. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another one of these, and I'm going to say that the second one needs to be the Spanish translation. So now what I want to do is I want to create the buttons, and the buttons are going to be created by actions. I need a save button and a cancel button. So let's do the cancel button first because it's simpler. That's going to be a UI alert action. And like UIAlertController, this uses a static factory method to create new instances. The title is going to be the text on the button. The style is, for purposes here, it's the color and weight of the font. I'm going to go ahead and use the cancel style, which will basically make the text bold. And then you could have a handler which would be triggered when the button is tapped. Now, all I want in the case of cancel is I just want it to dismiss the pop-up, the alert, without any further changes, and that's actually the default action anyway, so I can just pass null for the handler. However, for the next one, which is going to be the save button, and that's going to be a UI alert action as well, create it, save. I'll use the default style for this one. I do want to have a handler, and that'll be a lambda, and into it will be passed the action that's being created. And in here what I want to do is I want to get, first of all, the English word out of the text box, out of the first text field. Now, the alert controller has a text fields property which is merely an array of UI text field. So what I can do is I can access these by index. Now, this may seem to be kind of primitive, but how many text fields are you really going to put inside of a pop-up? I think we can keep track of them pretty easy with just the indexes. I know the first one is the English word, and then I know the second one is going to be the Spanish word. And now I have enough that I can use the shared list, add translation with the English word and the Spanish word. Now what I want to do is the last thing here, I'm going to tell the table view to reload its data to show the new item that was just added. Okay, so a couple more things that I need to do. First of all, the alert controller, I need to add the actions. So I'll add the save button first. And then add the cancel button. And then finally I need to show the alert. And the way that I can do that is with this method called presentViewController. And it's going to take a couple of parameters. The first one is the view controller to present. UIAlertController is a subclass of UIViewController, so that'll work fine. This next one here will animate the transition of the controller, so that's fine. I'll set that to true. And then also I could have a completion handler for after the transition is complete. I don't need that, so I'm just going to set it to null. All right. Let's try, that's all that we need. Let's try this one more time and see what happens. So let's click the plus button. Here's our pop-up. I'm going to add yellow, and the Spanish word for yellow is amarillo. Click save, and there it is. If I click on it, the right translation comes up, and the rest of them still work as well. So thanks for watching these videos. I hope that they will help you get started with creating iOS apps in Xamarin. Feel free to take this app and extend it for your own needs, and also feedback and subscribes are greatly appreciated. Thanks again.